Hey guys, it's Jasmine and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be the fourth in my Handmade Christmas series for 2017, and we're going to do 4 simple watercolor cards. So I've got my Koi watercolor set. This has got 24 colors in it, and it's really inexpensive and easy to use, especially for a beginner, someone who wants to delve into watercolors but they're not quite sure. This is a really great set. And I've got a Hero Arts stamp set that's got some Halloween images but mostly Christmas. And then I've got 2 kinds of watercolor paper I'm going to show you. These are both really good medium quality watercolor. They're student grade. So I buy these because I can get 4 card size panels out of 1 sheet of watercolor paper. They're both 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, and the cold press gives it a tiny bit of texture to the surface, but not too much. So when you're stamping on watercolor paper, it really helps to have a MISTI because it keeps the positioning precise. And when you're stamping on watercolor paper, you're not going to get an even stamping every time. So you're going to have to stamp multiple times, which is why it's necessary to have a precision tool so that you don't get over stamping or weird lines making it look like it's blurry. So when you're using watercolor paper, it's kind of makes it a whole lot easier to stamp when you're using a MISTI versus just an acrylic block. So I ended up having to re-stamp this about 4 times to get all of the lines crisp and solid. And I used archival ink for that because it's waterproof once it dries. Now with the buildup of ink, you do want to let it dry for a few minutes, so when it's dry it won't be shiny anymore. So I've got this taped down to a cutting mat, and I just chose this one because it's easy and small and you can move it around simply. And then I've got a big brush. I'm using silver brushes, the black velvet ones, and these are squirrel hair. They hold a good amount of water and they're really easy to use, and the barrels aren't too small. And if you have hands with arthritis like I do, it makes it a lot easier to do this kind of stuff when you have bigger barrels. So I'm going to use a wet on wet technique for this first one, and I'm just covering the whole panel with water, and then I'm going to go in with a darker pine green for the tree. And I want this to be a little bit loose, and you're going to see that it's going to bleed outside of the edges of the tree a little bit, and I wanted that. If you don't want that to happen, but you do want to use the wet on wet for the blending effect, then only paint within the tree lines, and it's a lot less likely to go outside of those lines. But if you wet the whole panel like I did, then you're going to get the bleeding outside the lines. But again, that was the effect I was going for. I wanted this to look kind of like the tree had some texture to it. So I kind of dabbed the paint on versus using brush strokes. And that kind of allows the paint to puddle a tiny bit and gives it a little bit more texture. And you do want to have some paper towels handy so you can sop up any wet paint that might get inside the little ornaments on the tree. And then I'm using a Fine-Tec Metallic watercolor palette for the ornaments. And I'm using a red gold color. And the Fine-Tec palettes are a lot more opaque than a traditional watercolor would be. So I've got a red and a bronzy gold color. So when you trim down these panels from the full 9x12 sheet, you're going to get 4.5x6 panels. So that allows for the edges for you to tape it down. So on the second one, I'm starting out with this bronzy gold color. And I kind of changed my mind halfway through painting this. So I just went in with some water and kind of brushed over the whole thing and blended it out. So I got a lot more paler wash of this bronzy gold color. And then I applied it more heavily towards the bottom, and I'm going to go in with a few shades of blue from the Koi palette for the top. And by using a lot of water on your panel, you're going to get this blending effect that just kind of runs. And I tipped it up so that gravity would help it run towards the top of the panel versus down into the bronzy gold color. And then I just took a thirsty brush, which is a brush that's damp but not soaking wet, and that will pick up color versus deposit it. I just took some clean water and tried to lighten up the tree a little bit, but it wasn't working as well as I wanted to, so I just took my paper towel in there and kind of dabbed up some of the excess color. So we have our third panel. And this one I kept super simple by just doing a little bit of dry brush technique using that pine green color over the tree, and then that was it. I wanted this to be really simple, really clean. And I did let that dry, and then I'm going in now, and I apologize, I lost some of the footage in this video, but I'm going to stamp and heat emboss the Merry Christmas using, what color is that? Liquid Platinum by Ranger embossing powder. So what I did off camera was just added some glue to the ornaments on this tree, and then let that dry. And this dried overnight, but you need to let it dry until it's no longer opaque. So it'll be kind of clear, and then it's super sticky. And so I went in with some Elizabeth Crafts True Red micro glitter. This stuff is super fine, and I tried to show you the difference between just putting it on and rubbing it with your finger. When you burnish it down with your finger, it really picks up a really satiny shine, and it's just really pretty, really easy to use. And then this is our fourth panel. So again, I covered the whole panel with water. And then I'm going to use some blues and just do some washes across the top. And I have a deeper royal blue, a sky blue, and kind of a gray blue that I'm using in this. And they're all from the Koi watercolor palette too. So I am tipping that up to kind of keep the concentration of color towards the top, because I want to go with a lighter blue in the middle. I like to keep that fade. And just cleaning up some of the excess with paper towel along the edges. And it is important to pick up those petals on the edges, because they can dry funky, and it's often not a good look. So I did go back into the tree and kind of clean up some of that excess color. Give that a little more white. And then I dried it with my heat tool just to kind of speed it up. I prefer to let them air dry, but in this case, since I had 4 I wanted to get done in the same day, I did use my heat tool on this one, kind of helped it along. And then I'm going in with the Fine-Tec palette again, and I'm going to use, let's see, the bronzy gold and a pearly silver for the little ornaments. And then I'm going to heat emboss another Merry Christmas sentiment on there using sparkling snow embossing powder from WOW. And for the tree with the bronze and the blue and the little red ornaments, I use sparkling snow embossing powder again to use the season greetings sentiment on that same stamp set. And on that green tree painted, the very first one, I used Lindy's Stamp Gang Candy Cane Red Gold and the season greetings on that one. So for each of these, I trimmed them down to, let's see here, 3 3/4 by 5, and matted them each with, let's see, 3 of these are on metallic gold foil cardstock, and then the one with the red glitter is on a red velvet cardstock as a mat. So these are easy to mass produce. And you can kind of do all of your stamping in one shot and then all your watercoloring in the next, and just kind of make it a assembly line process. And you can make each one different. You can make each one the same. It's kind of wide open as to how you want to do it. There's the sparkling snow. And all the WOW embossing powders are fantastic. They all heat really evenly, and they're just so pretty when they're finished. And I've got some pearls on that one. There's that one finished. And there's all folded out together. So thanks for joining me today, guys. I will catch you on the next one, and have a great day. Bye-bye.